Здравствуйте, уважаемые друзья.
And hello, friends and colleagues. I'm Elena Tolstoy. I'm a TV MC. I will moderate this session called Personal Service in a Mega City, How Moscow Transportation is Changing. Before we begin, and to make you smiling at the end of this working day, please watch this video clip and how young Muscovites envisage Moscow in future. Once I'm grown up, everything will be different. How different? We will not have any stairs. Once I'm going to my grandma, I will be able to run through my roller bike to the train. I will play on the internet, both metro, bus and train. I will be able to charge my tablet at the bus stop while waiting for the bus, and the tickets will be taken from the bus stop slot, and everything will be beautiful like a movie. And everywhere in the city we will have bikes. Just take a bike and ride it, and there's gonna be a specific bike lane, and everything to be managed like in a spaceship. 1,000 or 2,000 screens, 1,000 screens. We need hundreds of millions of these screens to manage the city. And I wish such a train riding across the city, and so we can ride it anytime we want. And I want everything to be beautiful, and my mom and dad to come and grab me from the kindergarten earlier. And so Muscovites can take advantage of the cutting-edge transportation system. Moscow transportation, future is here. I was really pleased to watch your faces, all of you are smiling, and such a train will be going through the city starting from September 2016. It will give more impetus to attractiveness of public transportation, and today we will discuss the services for the passengers, how the comfort is ensured, what are the customer-oriented practices they need to be borrowed and applied in Moscow Ring Railway. And let me introduce the speakers and discuss this mega interesting topic. Maxim Iksutov, Vice Mayor of Moscow. He's the head of Transportation Infrastructure Development. Nikolai Saul, and Minister of Transportation Deputy, Russian Federation. Michael Fandeev, Aeroflot, Marketing Director. Michael Blinken, Head of National Economy Forecasting, Head of Lab. Everybody knows me, and you don't need any introduction. And I realize I'm mistaken. And Vladimir Verkhoshinsky, he is VTB member of the board. Alex Smirnov, Vice President Sberbank. He is the chairman of the board Sberbank Russia, Moscow department. Let me give the floor to Maxim Iksutov. Maxim, please set aside what you hold in your hands and tell us on Moscow Ring Railway. And I would like to propose the interesting format, which will be beneficial not just for us as an administration responsible for the passengers, and for you as well, to consider your ideas and your opinions and find a way. Our task is rather simple today. In the nearest future, we will have an enormous infrastructure to be commenced into operation called Moscow Ring Railway, 54 kilometers long, 31 stations with 14 interchanges with metro, and 3 more will be added during 2017, 7 interchanges to the railway roads, and 10 will be commenced at the beginning, 4 more will be added later on. The total passenger traffic that we can provide transportation for is 300 million passengers per year, based on our experience and the knowledge that we accumulated while analyzing similar projects run in other cities of the world where such a huge infrastructure is put in place. We estimate the effect of this project is like Transsib railway for Moscow, and it gives impetus not only for the passengers traffic to unload Moscow Ring metro, and we want to reload it really. And there is a task in many of these cities. Once such infrastructure is commenced, it does not mean that from the month of September all 300 million passengers begin to use this infrastructure. The process will take 1.5 years up to 2 years. We are conservative in our transportation behavior. We are used to riding one type of transport. We are reluctant to change it. And the discussion that I wanted to have to initiate here to look at as follows: what the government of Moscow needs to do, what railway needs to do, how to attract passengers to Moscow Ring Railway. This is the second interchange contour circuit or central interchange circuit. What are the services that are needed to be organized by the government of Moscow to have more passengers come in, to make them choosing this Ring Railway as a passenger infrastructure for their everyday trips, so they change their transportation behavior. Because as a step one, we will have Lastachka speed trains manufactured jointly with Siemens and Urals locomotive plant. It will be air-conditioned, it will be electric traction, it will be equipped with the lavatories, and for handicapped person, everything will be provided. How to make it happen that the passengers are coming not in 2 or within 2 years, but to have an optimistic best-case scenario. Once we can ensure that the passengers are coming sooner than these 2 years that I mentioned. I prepared a lot of things to tell you, but let's discuss this action item and question Aeroflot colleagues. It's one of the leaders in the customer service, Sberbank, VTB Bank, and the banks that they change the perception of the banking sector, both in Moscow and in Russia. They experience the Ministry of Transportation. Michael Yakovlevich, he is an expert of international practices. We will be willingly accepting your proposals and implementing these proposals in practice. That's a very difficult role. On the one hand, dry figures. On the other hand, that within 2 years, people can be reluctant to come to this Ring Railway. Do you have thoughts how to make sure that the passenger shows up?
And the second question, if I may, on the regional level, what's the significance of this project? Can we roll this experience out to other regions? Thank you for inviting me to this interesting session. The desire to use railway infrastructure in cities is a long-standing one. We've been wanting to do this for a while because this is infrastructure which doesn't have contact with other modes of transportation and provides for very high speed. The Lastachka train can move at a speed of up to 120 kilometers per hour. No other mode of transportation can be the same in terms of rapidity, the silence, the availability of toilets, and one parallel that I could draw: the Lastachka train is not the first one to be used in the country. Our first experience was to integrate the Lastochka train system into the system of Olympic service. And now the entire transport system of Sochi is focused on Lastochka trains. Along with extraordinary comfort, this is extreme convenience when doing interchanges. So what we did was a multimodal system that was when a passenger flies by plane in Sochi, he or she moves to a train, and then there's the possibility to go to the resort directly. And we, of course, need to use the advantages of the train transportation. Those are the big departments for luggage. Of course, we need to compare such trains with the metro and try using the advantages that the Moscow Ring Railway has compared to the metro. It should be the big compartments for luggage, the compartments for bikes, and what we have today in our project. It's the possibility to have up to 6 bikes in 2 carriages. That means if we have about 2,500 people in a train, it's only about 12 to 15 bikes per train. Of course, that's not enough, given the effort that Moscow is taking to put Moscow residents on bikes. Of course, we need to allow bicycle riders and motorcycle riders to use the Moscow Ring Railway. There should also be some possibilities for people with disabilities, for people with little children. There was some negative experience that we amended quickly at the Olympic Games. There was a period when one could not get onto Lastochka with a snowboard and skis. This seems to be ridiculous at this moment. You are going to a ski resort, but you cannot go into the Lastochka train with the necessary equipment. We, of course, removed those mistakes very quickly, and right now Lastochka is deservedly popular among passengers. You've seen this video clip where kids told you what they needed, but these seem to be obvious things. But of course, there should be information about the Moscow Ring Railway in any guide, so that we can offer the Moscow Ring Railway as a rapid and comfortable mode of transportation. If we really focus on such things, I believe that the Moscow Ring Railway will become very popular both among Muscovites and the city's guests. So we need to really look at this mode of transportation from the point of view of all the users. And you also asked us about the region. Moscow is indeed the first part of the country that introduced courageously this intercity mode of transportation. We have Lastochkas coming from Krasnodar, so this seems to be a long-distance transport. And now it's in the center of the city, or almost there. I think this is the right step to take. We are going to analyze this experience quickly, and we will probably use it in St. Petersburg, where there are also some opportunities, and maybe we will use this rail infrastructure for intercity movement, or intra-city movement. Thank you very much. No. Well, actually, I gave the name correctly. Do not confuse me. I'm not going to tell you about Aeroflot. It's a very popular company. But if you think about the Moscow Ring Railway, what would you like to tell us? You can move on to the next slide at once, because the first slide was just the name of the presentation. I can tell you that what we could recommend has already been implemented. It has been done. Aeroflot's success has many components, but one thing is that it has one of the youngest fleet in the world. And with the Elastico trains, it's the same thing. So I would now like to focus on personnel. It's all a matter of personnel, because we are a service-oriented company. Aeroflot also has this crucial personnel. And right now there are discussions going on as to what professions are going to die, to become extinct. And maybe the cooperation or interaction between personnel and passengers will go down to zero gradually. But the fewer people we have remaining interacting with the passengers, the more important it is to provide the necessary top quality interaction. So let me tell you about how we interact with the passengers at our company. This is a system which allows our employees to take on different stages, and we use the best global practice. So before doing it here, we came to Singapore with several dozens of our flight attendants and looked at what they did. So I believe that there is certain kind of openness. We can learn how they do it, and I don't think we should always reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of things that we can take from abroad. There are lessons to be learned from abroad. If we like the way they do this in Singapore, why don't use it? Why not use it? The next slide, please. It's vital to decide what is important. Is it just the training of personnel? It's not only the training. So what is the key parameter? Is it the selection, the motivation? The key is the system. On every stage of the system, you should work in a structural, systematic way. Selection, for example, it's very important. Not every person is client-oriented by nature, and I'm talking about a psychological process. People have different characters, different emotional aspects, and as to all the people we are hiring, before we hire them, there is a multi-stage selection. We have tests, also foreign language tests. We have psychological testing of different levels. That is, if we look at flight attendants, at what they do, on the one hand it's teamwork, on the other hand this is customer focus, and it's also the use of IT technologies, because aircraft is full of different kinds of technologies. There are some failure possibilities. How is a person going to behave in such situation? This is all tested even at the selection level. People who passed this test will be able to become good employees if they still have the motivation and training. And then there is the training. It's also a systematic process. There are many different disciplines depending on the job. And the important thing is that after that, there is also the trial period. And after that, every flight attendant has a kind of tutor. And this tutorship is also a very important tool, because people who talk directly to passengers on a daily basis just cannot have all the situations written in the book. During this working process, if a person has passed this selection, if we explain things to this person, to the worker, please listen. Let us listen to our speakers, given their experience. So this tutorship is crucial because this is a tool of passing on knowledge. We can't always formalize this knowledge or write it in the books. And it's not just words, it's a system. At our company, there is a kind of system which allows you to develop a person, to train a person and score him or her, depending on the tests, depending on the number of hours spent as an employee, and depending on his or her activities as a tutor. So, in this case, we have such people promoted from the economy class to the business class, and of course we transfer these people to some bigger aircraft and so on. I believe that this will also be the case at the Moscow Green Railways. As a result, people do not just listen to some instructions, but they understand that everything they do, every step they take will be evaluated and reflected in their salaries. The next step, professional development. It never stops. People keep training and retraining. People want to actually ask for the training by themselves, or maybe as a corrective action, people may be asked to do some retraining. Next slide, please. There is an all-round evaluation of our personnel, and as a result of this evaluation, we can play with the person's, with an employee's motivation. And like this, an employee can be developed comprehensively. And we have some data from our consultant, Bain & Company, which uses the NPS index, which is the inventor of this index, which is now used globally. As a result, the involvement of our employees keeps growing. Please use aircraft of Aeroflot. Thank you. Mikhail, your suggestions, what is necessary to do so that passengers really vote for your mode of transportation?
Loyalty of our passengers does not depend on our personnel, because in the nearest future transport systems, the self-driving systems, these are not pilot systems. This is reality already. We don't have any flight attendants envisaged there. What will we have? And the commencement into operation of the Moscow Railway, it can be compared only with the metro that was launched in Moscow back then. And maybe it's Timiryazov. It was just nothing really new came within 80 years. And now I want to answer your direct question. There is a simple thing which is called carrot and stick. And this is carrot is the high-speed trains, the services, these multimodal transportation services. There is a famous president of Deutsche Bahn, the Grube professor. He has his favorite joke. The boy who installed the right up, he has more information than a dispatcher in a Deutsche Bahn 15 years ago. And for Moscow, it's also true. It's the quality of service, information-related quality of service in a broadest sense, and advertisement, promotion and advertisement of this project, and having a mobile app. I was explain how from Gagarina Square, how do I ride the metro bus and switch to Moscow Ring Highway. It's much faster than the car. The second thing is a stick, unfortunately, and the department already has it. I thought it will come in 2 years, but they already have, and you can come upstairs and you can find out how many cars are running across Moscow currently. Too many cars, and the balance between asphalt and a car, we will not rectify it in the nearest 100 years. What we need to do, we need to change it. The weakest measure that was invented 80 years ago due to Transportation Administration, it was launched. It should have launched in 1995, so paid parking lots. What else? I don't want to tell you what is next. I have a funny photograph. Please make sure everyone can see it. I can, and I have Kenneth Livingston. I have a friend, Kenneth Livingston, and he lives in London. 8 years ago, he launched fee-based entry mechanism, and I don't have any authority to speak that we need it in Moscow, but it will be done. But it is all related to the Moscow Ring railway. I'm an old car driver, and I will be explained that you reached Moscow Ring highway. Don't drive any further. It's not fantasy. It's not the fruit of my imagination. In Munich, they have more cars per capita because they have two car making plants. They love, Germans love cars. They buy them. But in Munich, once you come to Munich, and you will not find such a disastrous state as in Moscow. And in Munich, they have plenty of railway systems in Munich. This is the way we're heading to. And there is a clarification question. And to what extent politeness how to explain to you that you don't need to move any further. This is true cost of ownership, not of acquisition, and the rich guy buys a Bentley and the poor guy buys a Korean car. It's just all depends on the price of entry. And Vladimir, take a floor. Probably you have proposals on methods of payments, and we're talking carrots. Banks, they don't use sticks, we use carrots. And speaking about carrots, we need to change this transport related behavior. So the customer experience, we need to make it convenient, optimum at each and every step of the customer's trip. And our experience is that we just allocate specific people, services. It can be more or less people. It depends on the task. They watch it through the customer's eyes and streamline, optimize all the processes. And speaking about Moscow Ring Railway, maybe it's not the biggest, but important part of this experience is payment and financial services related to it. VTB Group, jointly with the Transport Department, we've been cooperating for a long time. We're thankful for this partnership. And this year we did the following. At the metro, we introduced cashless payment. And so these contactless payment cards, magnetic strips payments, and our subsidiary bank, and VTB24, they implemented a contactless entry system, and all the stops, all the stations will move to this system. And Troika card, we will be issuing it till the end of year. Several hundred thousands of Troika plastic cards will be issued, and we believe similar actions from payment and financial infrastructure, maybe something even more sophisticated will be implemented at this Moscow railway road. And so the people don't feel any discomfort at this step. And we need to analyze from A to Z and optimize. Oleg Evgenievich, considering your enormous experience, what are the proposals from your side? Yeah, the mic is on. And I believe there was a question here, why Moscow Ring Railway and Sberbank and VTB is here. Let me answer this question. One of the Moscow Ring Railway precepts is a very simple thing. The whole history of the Ring Railway, this is service for the passenger. And service means moving from A to B. And why passengers should choose Ring Railway, not a taxi, and why customers choose Sberbank and not other bank. And the most important thing, you are very brave. Yeah. Why Sberbank experience can be applied in the Moscow Ring Railway project implementation, because the start of this project begins with the question, what are the customers' expectations from this project? And one of the values of our bank, everything for the customer. This is the motto for Sberbank. And we are sharing this experience with our transportation department colleagues. It's not my next slide. To be honest, the first thing I would advise to you, in our bank, after analytics and focus groups, as usual, we defined what customer focus means, customer-centric approach means. And the most important definition for us is due to customer in the way you want it to be treated yourself. And so in a customer service, you need to come with your own motto, with your own mission. And this slide shows 10 key points done by Sberbank to make customer happier. And once we determined, made a definition, and we need to understand that what we declare, and this is a classic of management, we do not, what we cannot measure, we do not manage it. And Michael, my colleague, mentioned NPS index, and we have enough metrics, enough indicators by which we estimate to what extent Sberbank is attractive for the customers. And I'm sure NPS, this is a universal indicator, and Moscow Ring Railway can use this system to estimate whether they provide quality service or not. Today, the colleagues mentioned that personnel service is important, and one of the components for ourselves, we defined it, and soft skills, this is one of the components. And probably universities do not teach these soft skills, but it's important to have it and develop. This is a social radar, this is the empathy. It is important, irrespective of ordinary personnel or top management, empathy is a key. We need to feel how a customer feels. We need to hear, we need to understand our customer. We need to help our customer in a difficult situation, and for us, empathy is a foundation for outstanding services. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and what we've made is a tool. We prepared a tool. And I believe it proved to be efficient across Moscow and Russia. We have service managers, and these are our colleagues that work in our offices, and this is a complaint. They are processing complaints for unsatisfactory services, and they resolve problems and issues, and 80% of all customers' complaints are dismissed, considered by our managers, having tools in place, having infrastructure, and such service manager tool can also be integrated in the management team of Moscow Railway. We are we've been developing feedback, channel feedback from customers channel, and in our bank we have customer care center where any customer can give a call, or either through the website they can post their complaint, their comment, which will relieve the tension, the issue. Moscow is the most advanced city in Russia in terms of using internet, social media, and from my perspective, such a center that accumulates all types of feedback, it could have been beneficial for Moscow Railway to understand whether all the services are meeting the required level. We are paying for our mistakes, and this is just a pilot project. It is important not to say we admit our mistakes. It is important to do something about it. And currently we are implementing a pilot project, and sometimes we admit that bank is wrong and we compensate the damage that we incurred for the customer due to unsatisfactory service. This is another tool to improve loyalty of our customers with us. And the closing slide for this presentation, but for sure it is not the last in terms of importance. Personnel today. People means everything, and we need to develop our teams. We need to select right people for the teams. And the classics say, who comes first and then what? And I believe the start and development of the services at Moscow Railway, you need to begin with finding right people for your team. I have to speed things up because we have one more speaker. Please give us a mic. And I believe you also have a practical proposal. Hello, colleagues. Couple of words on Moscow Railway project.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Indeed, there has been a lot of things done on the project. This is a unique step forward, and it's difficult to add anything to it because a lot has been done. A lot of most modern things. I would just add a few words about our directorate, the passenger department at our company. We had a passenger, the year of the passenger this year, and we invented a lot of things for the client to provide proper service. The basic principle is to hear a client, to become closer to a client, to understand a client, and to do what a client expects from us. When we did some reviews this year, we understood that the client's most important desire is free Wi-Fi, free internet access, and the internet works at all Moscow railway stations. This is particularly important when some operators switch off free of charge internet in Moscow. I think that if we do free internet at Moscow railway stations, this will be one of the attraction points. It's convenient for the client to come up to stations, and that is why we need to do some transport hubs, not just with some retail shops, but also with the possibility to do interchanges from and to the most important number of modes of transportation possible. We should also remember about additional parking lots. By the way, in Moscow, at the Kyiv metro station and railway station, we decided that a parking lot is the most important thing, because this is what drivers need in order to ensure comfort and convenience. As for personnel, I really liked the presentations from Sberbank, from VTB, from Aeroflot. We also believe that that's one of the most important things when we work with a client, and no investment in this is spent in vain. So the first thing we did was doing memos for everyone who talks to a client. And if we talk about our personnel, it's quite clear. We have a huge number of people. We have outsourcing companies, including security personnel, including shop assistants, who also provide services. Those are not our employees. What to do with them? Today we are developing standards on working with our infrastructure at our premises, and in the near future we are planning to sign some additional agreements with the outsourcing companies, including the leases of our premises, and we are going to oblige them to work properly with our clients. We cannot actually make them change their financial scheme, but we must make sure that their personnel is polite, that they will not be rude to clients, and that our clients will not be poisoned with any foodstuff. Thank you. I promise to leave some time for questions. Please give the mic to the man in the first row. Please introduce yourself and ask us very, very rapidly. We need to hurry. Vladimir Plotnik of the International Moscow University, Department of Large City Direction. Let me bring you a little bit more down to earth. What is the most important? Indeed, attracting people, inviting them to take trips along the Moscow Ring railways. If we have one ticket for the metro station and for the Moscow Ring railway, it's one thing. If there are two tickets, then the trip cost will be doubled, and no one will use it. Unfortunately, you haven't said anything about it. So the key question: will there be a single trip ticket for the metro station and for the Moscow Ring railway? The second point: interchanges. Out of 17 interchanges, those are interchanges when you walk along the street and you have to walk for more than 600 meters. No one is going to walk. People will still go to the ring road of metro, do the interchange there, and move on to another radial line. No one is going to take the Moscow Ring railway. I think it's more complicated. I think you should build new stations along metro lines. For example, between the Sokol metro station and Voykovskaya metro station with direct transportation. Those are the two key points that need to be resolved. Without that, no polite smiles, no highly proficient flight attendants or other employees will not make the Moscow Ring railway successful. Thank you. We've heard you. I also promised to give the floor to some important persons. Please, ask very briefly. I will be very brief. This regards the Nizhny Novgorod project. Everyone talks about transport accessibility, but I would like to talk about pedestrian accessibility of the Moscow-Rin railway, so that people can walk towards those points. We need to make beautiful pedestrian zones at the access towards those hubs. Because if there is a distance of 1.5 kilometers and if we do a great pedestrian area, I think people will walk with pleasure. Thank you. We've had you. I'm sorry, I don't have enough time. We have to complete our session, so let me try to sum up everything that has been said. I believe that Maxim Lisotov from the Department of Transport and everyone involved in this project will take those recommendations into account. So it's about selection, training and motivation of personnel. Then providing new applications, explaining to people that when you get to the Moscow-Rin railway, you don't have to go any further. Provide the necessary payment instruments. Introduce contactless payments at turnstiles by PayWave, for example, when you just have to put the PayWave card to the turnstile. Plus, organize the feedback with the passengers via hotlines, the social media, or maybe other tools. Make interchanges as comfortable as possible. The internet, we've grown used to this. Think about additional parking areas so that we don't need to move any further. A single ticket for the metro and the Moscow-Rin railway so that it becomes cheaper, and making pedestrian zones more beautiful. And maybe some people added more information on this agenda. Just one thing. My colleague who said that the most important thing is a single ticket. But I'm sorry, I just didn't mention this. I thought that everyone is already aware of this. The mayor of Moscow said if you have a metro ticket, then you don't pay anything extra. You have 90 minutes. So we've had it, we've fixed it. That's what we have. So this decision has already been made. And interchanges within the metro, I just thought that everyone is already aware of this because we've been talking about it for a while. So this decision has been taken, so please don't worry, people will come. Thank you very much to everyone present here.